had a restraining order put on him as well, because I feel threatened. But you were finishing up with Henry Kissinger and David Rockefeller helping, make sure that all the money of Lady Astor goes to, basically their charities, which are tax-free foundations. And like you said, it's been documented they use art sales, $10 million for a painting worth $10 that they then buy from their friends is all part of the money laundering operation. But finish up the statements you were making.
The most important thing that Anthony Marshall said about this is what it portends for us. Now, this is a wealthy man, but it doesn't matter how much we have, $10 million or a box of cornflakes. Mr. Marshall said if these people prevail by using the state force against him to take every last penny he has and put him in prison for doing nothing other than being the son of a wealthy lady, he said they can do this to you, to me, to everybody. In other words, it means the day is not far off when state goons and the greedy guts who instigate them can march into our homes and look around at our possessions, accuse us of having taken those possessions by force or trick from our relatives, our families, and appropriate them, and then put us through the courts, railroad us through into criminal courts, and then privatize prisons, because after all, we stole from our poor dear parents. Meanwhile, these people walk off with everything we have, and we lose our liberty and the ability to tell our story. I guess they thought we would just sit back, Alex, and let that happen. Boy, are they... What do they do with these elites? Do they breathe the brains out or something?
Well, you were saying
I
was talking to you during the break, because that's a great idea for me to have Anthony Marshall on the show, son of of Lady Astor, heir to that fortune. I know one of the sub-heirs is CIA agent, admits he's an agent, Anderson Cooper up there on CNN. But specifically with you were saying it's a playbook, and you're right. All these scams are literal playbooks. They've even found, little playbooks that different crime syndicates use. How did they go after you trying to steal your dad's money?
They started years ago, very slowly and slyly. As fathers and sons live in different places when you grow up and move out. And when I wasn't around, they would call him. They would move in on him. They'd come to visit. Now, they wouldn't give anything. These people, with them, the meter only flows in one direction, to them and away from the person they've targeted. When you get someone elderly, especially as they become, let's say in their 70s, 80s, they can become suggestible, they can become fearful, and if you have, like Mr. Rockefeller and Mr. Kissinger here in this trial, if you have a nice protector who will protect you, what they do, and this is, I talked to a state police major about this a while back, and he said, this is the old story. They always get the elderly people to turn against their sons and daughters and welcome in all these obvious criminals. And he said it can go on for years. Sometimes they can prevail. The only hope is if the sons and daughters catch them and dig in and fight, and you cover yourself. You keep track of where you are so that if they make a false accusation against you, it'll be just that. You can always account for your whereabouts.
Well, let me just tell you this. I happen to know a lot of old folks. In fact, I don't want to embarrass family, but let's just say family I have.
Yeah.
I'll just say I have an uncle whose wife's mother had like $500,000, that she'd saved up, middle class, married to a general in the military, family. And the Republican Party, she gave a little bit of money to the Republican Party. They called her, hounded her, visited her until they'd sucked every dime out of her bank account. And that's what they do. I mean, they even do it with these telemarketers.
Alex, you're right on the money. They want every last penny. They don't want 40% or even 85%. They want 180% of everything, and then your liberty to make sure you don't talk. And that's where they're going to outsmart themselves. And there's only one way to do it. The way they did to me, it's still going on, but they may well be facing some legal consequences in the future. It's out of our hands at this point. Somebody has taken an interest in it, thank goodness. But they do it the same way. They turn the elderly parents against their legitimate offspring, their sons and daughters.
No, I know. This is what criminals do, and
this is what they do. There's a great website, StopGuardianshipAbuse.com, which has a lot of information on this. Their initials are NASGA, and there's many sites. There's a lot of information on the net. It's like baseball. There's only one way they can do it. Doesn't matter whether they're after a box of cornflakes or $10 million or somebody has a nice old car in their garage and they want that. There's only one way to play baseball, and once you see the moves, if you're an adult in your 40s, 50s, 60s, if you see these moves, if you sense people getting around your parents, it's time to take a closer look.
Well, there's tons of these people. I mean, there are they don't just do it to old folks. There's all sorts of, neighbors and other people. I'm telling you, folks, there are so many parasites, and most liberals aren't really liberals. I mean, if you go out to dinner with them, they'll never give a tip. They'll never try to buy dinner. They'll also resent you, though, because you're a nice person. They are parasites. That's what big government's about, is the parasites all getting together, robbing those of us that produce. I really appreciate your call. It's great hearing from you, and I had you on for 20 minutes. Paul in Florida, because everything you said rung true. Anna, JD, Gavin, Sam, Dave, your calls are coming up in a moment. But speaking of class warfare, this is how it works. The ultra elite, the ultra rich, and this is in Carol Quigley's book with the CIA commissioned for him to write, so there'd be an official history for government operatives to, really know how the world works. And this is in many other documents and government reports and think tank reports. The elite socialize in the first phase. Break up the families. You can't have a man in the house. You can have welfare, but you can't have a man in the house, knowing you're 3 or 4 times more likely for your kids to be on drugs or end up in prison. Breaking down society. Then there's more crime. Then the middle class wants more cops, more control, more gun control, because there's all these criminals running around shooting people. Again, they create the crisis and then always offer the next solution. Then they create another even bigger crisis, and then you get deeper into the noose, deeper into the quicksand, and they've got another solution. And exactly, you learn all their little scams, and there's hundreds of them, but there's only 100 or so of the scams they run, different permutations of them. And then you know their whole game plan. You know what they're going to do next. And it's so frustrating to see the public completely blind to all of this. But I was digressing. They're now playing class warfare. The elite breed up this giant, dumbed-down mass of poor people with no futures or no jobs, and they then point them at the middle class. I mean, folks, blue-collar people think if you're living in a $200,000 house and drive a $30,000 car, they call you rich. I mean, if you've got nicer rims than your neighbor in a blue-collar neighborhood, they think you're rich, and they envy you. I never was brought up like this. I never knew this. Living in blue-collar neighborhoods, and I would have a car a little nicer than neighbors, and they would actually be jealous of it. I mean, again, it's mental illness, and they have ingrained this in the public now, and they're telling them, look, we're going to take the rich people's money. And who are the rich people? Anybody who has one nickel more than them is rich. And so now they call the public school children in, and we have the police training videos of this footage in Austin of them doing this to school children, and they say, here is your debit card with your name, and they thumbprint you to enroll you in it as a criminal. And they say, you get $200 to turn in somebody with guns. And they send a flyer home with parents saying, we're teaching your kids to tell us if they see crime or guns. Sounds reasonable. Then you get into the training, and it's, what is in mommy's and daddy's medicine cabinet? Are they smoking pot? Tell us. You get 200. This isn't Road to Tyranny, by the way. This is 7 years old that I have this footage. They put this out on TV. They're proud of this. They're not hiding it. I want you to report on mommy and daddy. You get $200 for mommy or daddy. You get $50 for turning a fellow student in. Now, this is going on nationwide, and MIAC reports and DHS reports and Patriot Terror reports, and it says blue jeans, cell phones, they're polite, they wear suits, the terrorists go to city council meetings, they say they want to work with police, they make frequent references to the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not exaggerating, I'm giving you exact quotes. Now, they now all over the United States are telling you Big Brother's going to help you and the whole anti-terrorism apparatus to fight Al-Qaeda, give up your rights to fight Al-Qaeda. It's now for gun owners, patriots, conservatives. And now out of England, same stuff going on here, police encourage citizens to report people who drive nice cars. PrisonPlanet.com. Police in the UK are encouraging citizens to report people who drive nice cars or buy expensive items to the authorities in a new campaign entitled, Too Much Bling, Give Us a Ring. Meanwhile, the government's bringing in the narcotics, money laundering, everything, total corruption. They don't care. The Gloucestershire Force is encouraging members of the public to report people wearing too much bling during the recession. That's a quote. They are also urging people to